Всем здравствуйте.
Hi everyone. Today we'll tell you about how accidentally we got our own Shodan. We being Markov Pavel, me, and my colleague Igor. From time to time, we present at different conferences. We have the blog. We love PhDs. They write about us. We work in the organization that's called the Technology of Radio Control in the Internet Technologies Department. And mostly, we do the software development, the solutions that work in the areas of IT security and use different scalable cloud technologies. One of our tasks is to control the perimeter of the holding network, the outside perimeter. The enterprise we're holding are situated around Russia. One of the aspects of the security is to periodically look through our own network and accumulate the information about them. So next year, we found out that this was a feasible approach when we published the Harris Blade vulnerability, and almost immediately, as soon as we saw that in the advisor, find out which versions are looking into the internet and what's actually vulnerable, fix that quickly. So that was a reasonable approach. Also, since the practical security is our other task, we're essentially interested in collecting the data on the devices that are connected to the internet, but the devices not only from our own organizations, but also CDP, SCAD. Last year, we took part in the PhDs contest. So how does it work from the side? We store the data on the scanning network scanning, and they've been stored in a cluster service. It's all organized for the most horizontal scalability, and the user can get to the website as the ordinary Shodan. It's done. So not all the ports were problematic there. There were some problems with flexible search. The clients, of course, love seeing the statistics. So here's the example of the fresh vulnerabilities, the XSS and XSIM service 4.5 and lower. We actually could see how bad is the situation. If we ask the Shodan, is to ask the Shodan to show us the versions. It will show everything that it's able to find, both 4.5, but we need lower than 4.5 as well. The Shodan will show the 4.7 and everything all together. So we were able to get the statistics on the vulnerable software thanks to our solutions up to the version 4.5 with the regular expression. We used regular expression for that. So this OSTP page, it's quite informative. Also, OSOTP is quite an interesting thing, but they're quite complicated for an ordinary user. So if you're particularly interested in this subject, we can discuss it in more detail. To continue the issue of what we had missing in the Shodan, we love getting to the harbor, seeing what's interesting in there, and from time to time we find cache stuff. For those of you who doesn't know, so for example, there is the open port, hangout, say 11.11211, with a session there. So it's almost the same thing as Heartbleed. You can read online more about it. So there's a standard port there, and we want to see how many devices like this there are with the open port, and they're connected to the internet. So we get the search via Shodan. There's a certain port, and it's cached, and it shows the considerable number of records. So it's wonderful, great. Another example, I'm trying to find the open port related to banks, not because I'm a specialist in banks, but just as an example to show simply that from time to time we need some extra expressions. Shodan does not find these kind of things, and based on the Shodan search, sometimes we have to gather the statistics not once or twice a day, but sit for hours and hours, and from time to time Shodan stops understanding you and stops understanding certain queries which it was understanding yesterday, so it's hard to get the statistics. When there is a developer, but for Shodan developers the way is harder, definitely. So based on the similar reports, similar queries, we can find things like this. Here, some might say that we hacked all the banks and it's awesome. Here they are, but let's actually see what we found in the end. Whether we can actually boast with hacking banks and that show that the banks are vulnerable. So here's the first bank, the Swiss private bank of the stem cells. Awesome. We can see whose stem cells are on that website. Probably this is not quite what we were looking for. Deutsche Bank Wi-Fi is just the operator, or the Wi-Fi operator. Why am I saying this? There are these issues with search. One tool is never enough to gather and collect all the information and execute the task. There's the necessity to understand how the tool works.
Well, we did find some real financial institutions. Okay, we go after them. We see that there's some cache statistics, and now we can go to a conference and claim that the bank is vulnerable. But it's found that the port is open, vulnerability is there, but it cannot be exploited because the hash is empty. And it's not a 5-minute snapshot. So we check this site periodically to see whether the site has any data at all. And we found that no data can be found. Maybe they did a good job. But if we look into it deeper, we find that, yes, there is a bug, but it's of no use. So what is the Shodan and a similar thing that we did? I would like to make this point. We did not want to compete with Shodan, but at some point it became impossible to use Shodan, so we had to reinvent the whole thing anew. And as we need to work with statistics, we need to understand where to get it. Shodan has its own database. It collects data from internet scanning, and information is given to the user on request. So where can the data be taken from for analysis? Like open sources, publicly open sources, and you can export all that into your own database and then go look into that. This is what we did in the beginning. But the problem is that such data will not be up to date, and not all ports are accessible. And as my colleague reminds me, cached port was not there at all when we looked at that site. So we started our own scanning, and this is where the trouble begins with information from Heartbleed. Information, the data is as late as April, but providers started to block HTTPS, multiple HTTPS inquiries. They didn't care what traffic, multiple inquiry triggers the ban. This immediately cut us short and disallowed us to accumulate our own statistics. So we used Nmap and Zmap to build our own database. In terms of analysis, we did have some problems. Of course, for example, you want to see how many routers there are within the Cisco system. You find 1 million, but then you go dig deeper and you see that there are not all of those devices are the routers. Another result another outcome was that we found Cisco, but there's also Synology and Windows using the Apache port. So is it Cisco or not Cisco? So if we try to look into that, really, routers can access ports, and the situation is that Cisco forwards the other two devices to the particular ports. Another statistical problem: how many Synology devices there are in the internet? We made an inquiry. The result is 9,000. We go to the ports of Synology. There are many of them. Not of them are in Shodan. Then we use Emap. And what is more interesting here is there's a line in the HTTP title. We put it into the search engine and we find 11,000 devices. And these are quite valuable entries, not trash, much better than using Synology as keyword. Once again, as is shown here, we have problems when attempting to use Shodan. So when we use alternative requests, maybe it's an inbuilt Shodan problem. So as you analyze statistical problems, the key may be the way how device is connected, directly through internet or through a firewall, and the firewall may be within the device itself. Another analysis problem. We use, again, we search for Heartbleed. 114,000 entries. Not too many. But if we ask about scripts showing the vulnerabilities, and we find 3,500 entries. One of the problems was updating the entries. We found 1 million entries here on Cisco. Wonderful. How many are now? Or was it 2 weeks ago? Maybe this one entry is no longer Cisco related. So we updated our arrangement, and we use search robots. They first show how many is found, then we push the button which says update, and the search robot processes all the entries and shows which of them are up to date. And finally, the bonus: how would you know where the cache ATM is located? And the ATM says it yourself. There were times when the hacker had to physically approach an ATM machine to empty the cartridge of the banknotes. Of course, the entry does not allow you to do that, but we do not know everything. Heartbleed existed for 2 years, and nobody was troubled until this problem was discovered. So we need to be really careful, especially with the addresses. Okay, now we're ready to take questions. No, we didn't open yet. If you are interested, we can demonstrate how it works outside this session. No, there are not plans as serious as that. There was one question on the back. Thank you. It's really interesting and very topical. Some questions. Which kind of computation devices do you use for your search robot? Second question. How do you address the problems of honeypot screening? As far as I know, all the nodes in the network which can be vulnerable through Heartbleed, 99% of them are honeypots. Well, as for honeypots, I can say mostly we are after statistics. Well, honeypots gives you a false positive. Not always. And Heartbleed, it is easy to check. If it gives you sensitive information, it's not a honeypot. But in external networks, we're looking for honeypots. We are really after internal networks, after statistics. As for the search robot, there are different parts. There's a database part where data is stored, and the robot. It's like a machine, and you can start IMAP, and you can have as many of them as you want. Did you try to compare this with mass scan? Yes, we know this as a utility. We use them in searching for solutions, yes?